he somehow lives. The driver, a young man by the name of William Brooks, lost both legs. Another member of the Mississippi National Guard crawls to him under fire, manages to get a tourniquet on each of his legs, but his legs were gone. The next day I happened to visit that unit. The next day, as word passes that I will be leaving Iraq to go to our military hospital in Germany, a place called Lundstuhl. So every member of that unit says, can you wait just a minute? Can you hold up? We want to write some letters. Every member of that unit wrote a letter, and they didn't have time to put them in envelopes. They said, we want you to read them. We want you to read them while you're flying to Germany. And every one of them said the same thing to this 20-year-old Mississippi State student. William, you're the best guy in the unit. It shouldn't have happened to anybody. It shouldn't have happened to you. By the time I get to Germany, William is in intensive care, so they won't let me see him. But a few weeks later, he gets stabilized, and they fly him to Washington, and he's at Walter Reed Hospital. William's lying in his bed, and I get to go visit him, and quite honestly, you can imagine being 20 years old, a university student who's been activated, and you wake up, and your legs are gone. And I think we all know how we would feel. I was afraid that William had lost his will to live. One thing I can do is talk to people. So we get talking to William. I said, William, you know, this is what I do. I do politics. You were studying political science. I've already spoken to Mississippi State. They will give you credit if you come work in my office. You'll get college credit for it. I've already spoken to General Bum of the National Guard Bureau. The National Guard will pay you to come work in my office while you figure out what you want to do with the rest of your life. For whatever reason, William, 20 years old, lost both of his legs, chose not to stake me up on that offer till the day after Katrina. She might imagine down here things were pretty messed up. Phones didn't work. I couldn't call the CB base. I couldn't call Keesler from Base St. Louis. But strangely enough, the one satellite phone that did work in Hancock County, I could call the Pentagon. A couple weeks pass by and the cell towers come back up. People still can't call locally, but they can call my Washington office. So you might guess the folks up there were kind of busy. One morning, 2 days after the storm, someone shows up at my doorstep in a wheelchair. It's William Brooks up in the Washington office and says, I guess you guys could use some help. He starts manning the phone, and the phone's ringing off the hook, and William's there helping people get MREs, water, trying to get them a trailer. A couple weeks pass, and by now people are getting a little grumpy. It's hot, no air conditioning, it's hard to get around, they're tired of using portalets, all the things that happened after the storm. And this guy calls up and he says, you know what, I just stood in line for 3 hours to register for FEMA, and what's that blankety blank congressman going to do about it? And William says, well, sir, he's down there with you. Give me your information, we'll see what we can do. The guy who calls in then starts proceeding to really, and I get this from the person sitting next to him who relayed the message, the guy gets pretty rude with William. He's pretty cranky. He says, well, listen here, you worthless Washington bureaucrat. You're up there in the air conditioning, you got flush toilets, you got running water. I'm down here, what are you going to do about it? He says that 2 or 3 times. And finally, William had started to have enough. And he says, well, sir, I'm not a worthless Washington bureaucrat. I'm a Mississippi National Guardsman. I have volunteered to come here and try to help you. Then the guy tears into that. He says, well, I was a real soldier in a real war. And I didn't sit in some congressman's office. Goes on one more time to say that he just stood in line for 3 hours. And by this time, William had just had enough. And he says, sir, you don't know me, so I'm going to tell you about me. I'm a Mississippi National Guardsman. I was a Mississippi State student. I was activated. On the day after Easter, my Humvee was blown up. My gunner, Dave Yancey, was beaten to smithereens. He's sitting at the chair right next to me talking to someone else on the phone. He's also trying to be of service to you. He says, if you will tell me what you need, I will gladly get it for you. And oh, by the way, I would gladly have given anything to have stood on my legs for those 3 hours in line for you. Long silence on the other end of the phone. The guy says, I guess standing in line's not so bad. William says, no, sir, it's not. The point I want to make, and I hope I can leave you with, is those heroes aren't just in the books. Those heroes don't live far away. Those heroes are our neighbors. They live next door to us, and they're continuing to serve. And the greatest tribute you can pay to these Mississippi National Guardsmen, or this captain, or this general, or above all to these veterans, is to step forward and say thank you for what you've done, and I want to be just like you. I will take that place on that ship, in that airplane, on that helicopter. I'll take that place on the flight line fixing those things just like you've done. Because that's what it takes for us to remain the world's greatest nation. The world's greatest weapons are worthless if great young Americans won't step forward to man them. And so for those of you who have served, those of you who continue to serve, and for guys like William Brooks who came home, walked across the stage at Mississippi State University on his artificial legs, ran for and was elected to the City Council of Brookhaven, Mississippi this spring. For those of you who have served and continue to serve, we are all here today to say thank you, God bless you, and we want to be just like you.